My family runs a respected grief counseling business, helping people cope with unexpected loss. I just found my father's private letter. The clients are all people whose spouses have recently died in accidents that perfectly match my father's travel schedule. The leather of the ledger is cold under my fingertips, a deep oxblood-red that seems to absorb the lamplight in my father's study. The room smells of old paper, pipe tobacco, and the lemon oil our housekeeper uses on the mahogany desk. It's a scent I've always associated with security, with the quiet dignity of my father's work. Now it feels like the embalming fluid of a mausoleum. My own house, my own home has become a tomb, and I've just pried open the sarcophagus. I shouldn't be in here. His study is his sanctuary, the one room that is unequivocally his. But he's away at a conference in Seattle, or at least that's what his calendar says. And I was looking for old tax documents, something mundane and ordinary. I never expected to find this. Our name, Hayes, is etched on a brass plaque by the front door. Hayes Grief Counseling. We're a local institution. My father, Arthur Hayes, is the pillar, the man with the steady voice and the sad, kind eyes who can sit with a new widow for hours saying nothing at all and somehow make her feel less alone. I'm the one who manages the practice, who schedules the appointments, who orders the tissues and the calming chamomile tea. I'm the one who sees the clients before he does. Their faces pale and puffy, their hands trembling as they sign the intake forms. I thought I was helping. I thought we were the ones who put the pieces back together. I trace a line in the ledger with a shaking finger. Eleanor Albright. I remember her. She came in 2 months ago. A fragile bird of a woman, absolutely shattered. Her husband, a prominent real estate developer, had died in a boating accident off the coast of Maine. A rogue wave, the paper said. A tragic, unpredictable act of nature. My father spent weeks with her. I remember him telling me how important it was to validate her anger at the universe, at the sheer unfairness of it all. Right here, in my father's elegant looping script, is her name. Next to it, a date from the week of the accident. A location, Portland, ME, and a number with so many zeros after it that my vision swims. It's not a counseling fee. It's a fortune. My breath catches in my throat, a dry, rasping sound. I flip a page, then another. It's a litany of death, a travelogue from hell. A construction magnate in Denver whose scaffolding failed. The date corresponds to my father's keynote address at the Western Counseling Symposium. A tech CEO in Chicago whose car had a sudden electrical fire. That was the week he visited his cousin. Every entry is the same. A name, a location that matches his travel itinerary, and a payment that looks more like winning a lottery ticket than a professional fee. These aren't our regular clients. These are a select, secret few. The surviving spouses, the ones who inherited everything. A cold dread, heavy and physical, settles in my gut. I'm not looking at a list of clients. I'm looking at a list of contracts. The people my father so expertly counseled weren't just his patients. They were his employers. We don't just help people cope with unexpected loss. We create it. My father, the gentle, empathetic man who taught me how to ride a bike and checked for monsters under my bed, is a monster himself. The pieces of my life, the solid certainties I've built everything on, are cracking and falling away, revealing a chasm so dark I'm afraid I'll never find my way out. And then I hear it. The crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. A car door slamming shut. It's his car. I know the sound of its engine like my own heartbeat. He's home. He's early. And I'm sitting in his chair with his book of sins open in my hands. My blood turns to ice. That sound, the familiar crunch of gravel, the solid thud of the driver's side door, is the soundtrack to my entire life, the signal that safety and order had returned home. Now it's a death knell. My fingers spasm, nearly tearing the brittle page of the ledger. For a frozen second, I can't move, can't breathe. I'm just a statue in his leather chair, the evidence of his unimaginable evil spread open on the desk in front of me. The lamplight pools on the names, making them shimmer like fresh blood. Eleanor Albright, Robert Peterson, Maria Sanchez. A graveyard in calligraphy. Then the jingle of keys at the front door shocks my limbs into action. I slam the book shut. The sound is a dull, heavy whoomph that seems to echo in the unnaturally quiet house. My hands, slick with a cold sweat, fumble with the weight of it. I can't just leave it on the desk. He would know. He would know instantly. My eyes start around the study, a room I thought I knew better than my own, and it's suddenly alien territory, full of shadows and hostile angles. The drawer, the deep one on the bottom right. My mind supplies the detail with a frantic, desperate clarity. I found it tucked behind the hanging files for his estate planning. I yank the drawer open, the brass handle cold and unforgiving against my palm. The runners screech in protest. I wince, freezing, listening. The front door is opening, the soft, telltale groan of the old hinges. With trembling hands, I slide the ledger back into its hiding place, shoving it deep into the darkness behind the thick manila folders. I push the drawer closed, my breath held tight in my chest. It shuts with a solid, definitive click. Too loud. Everything is too loud. I shove myself out of the chair, my legs unsteady, and quickly try to smooth the impression my body left in the worn leather. I scan the desk. The lamp is on, but was it on when I came in? I can't remember. My short-term memory has been incinerated, replaced with a loop of names and accident reports. I see nothing else out of place. I have to get out. Now. I slip from the study, pulling the heavy oak door toward me until I hear the latch catch with a soft snick. The hallway is a tunnel of twilight, the only illumination spilling from the living room at the far end. That's my goal. The armchair by the fireplace. I have to look casual, unbothered, as if I've been there all afternoon. I move on the balls of my feet, the thick pile of the runner swallowing the sound of my steps. I can hear him moving in the foyer, the soft rustle of his coat being hung in the closet. Then his footsteps, slow and measured, turn toward the kitchen. Away from me. I feel a wave of relief so intense it makes me dizzy, and I use the momentum to propel myself into the living room. I snatch a magazine off the coffee table, something about architecture I've never looked at before, and sink into the deep cushions of the armchair. I fan the pages open, holding it in front of my face like a shield. My heart is a wild bird beating against the cage of my ribs. A moment later, he appears in the arched doorway connecting the living room to the hall. He looks weary, the lines around his eyes etched deeper than I remember. His tie is loosened, his jacket slung over one arm. He sees me, and a smile flickers across his face. It's the same gentle smile he's given me my whole life, but tonight, it doesn't reach his eyes. Those sad, kind eyes I've trusted implicitly. I was wrong. They aren't kind. They are just empty. "Ben," he says. His voice is the same warm baritone that has soothed hundreds of grieving clients, the voice that taught me the constellations on summer nights. "Didn't realize you were here." He walks into the room, his presence filling the space, sucking the air from my lungs. He sets his briefcase down with a soft thud. Conference wrapped up a day early. The keynote speaker had a sudden family emergency. My blood runs cold again. A family emergency? The phrase, so mundane, lands like a threat. What kind of emergency? A rogue wave? A faulty wire? I force my mouth to move, to form a reply that won't betray the screaming in my head. "Just getting some work done from home," I say, my voice sounding thin and reedy to my own ears. "Figure might take advantage of the quiet." He nods slowly, his gaze lingering on my face. He runs a hand through his perfectly coiffed, silver-streaked hair. "It's good to be home," he murmurs, and the simple, domestic sentiment is so profoundly twisted, so obscene in the face of what I know, that I feel a hysterical laugh bubbling in my throat. I choke it down. He takes a step closer, and I can smell the faint scent of stale airplane air and his expensive cologne. His brow furrows in a perfect pantomime of fatherly concern. "You look pale, son," he says, his voice softening. "Is everything all right?" He's looking right at me, and I feel transparent, convinced he can see the ledger's reflection in my pupils, that he can read the names I've just burned into my memory. The glossy pages of the magazine tremble in my hands. The monster I live with is worried about my health. My throat is a desert. I have to force the words past the lump of terror lodged there. Just, a long week, I manage, the sound thin and brittle. I try to make my lips curve into a semblance of normalcy, a pathetic attempt at normalcy. A difficult client. You know how it is. The irony is a physical, bitter taste on my tongue. He is the difficult client. He is the architect of every difficult client we have. The magazine in my hands is a flimsy shield, and I can feel its pages vibrating with the tremor that has taken over my entire body. I focus on a picture of a minimalist kitchen, all steel and cold white marble. It looks like a morgue. He doesn't buy it. I know he doesn't. He's a professional empath, a human lie detector, a skill he's apparently honed by being the very source of the grief he so expertly treats. He takes another step, closing the distance between us, and his shadow falls over me. "You know you can talk to me about anything, Ben," he says, his voice a low, confidential murmur. He places a hand on my shoulder. I flinch, a tiny convulsive movement I can't suppress. His fingers tighten for a fraction of a second before relaxing. His touch feels like a brand, a claim of ownership. I want to shrug it off, to leap from the chair and scream, but I am paralyzed. His thumb begins to rub a slow, soothing circle on my collarbone, a gesture he's used to calm me since I was a child. Now, it feels like a threat, a quiet reminder of his control. He finally pulls his hand away and walks over to the fireplace, running a hand along the cool stone of the mantelpiece. The gesture is casual, proprietary. He owns this house, this life, this lie. "Well, I'm glad to be home," he says, turning back to me. "I was thinking of picking up some steaks for dinner, or we could order in. Anything you're in the mood for?" The question is so jarringly, obscenely normal that my mind whites out for a second. Food. He's talking about food. My stomach churns and I see Maria Sanchez's name in the ledger. The cause of death for her husband? Anaphylactic shock. A sudden, severe shellfish allergy no one knew he had. Did she serve him dinner, I wonder? Did my father suggest the menu? "I'm not hungry," I say, my voice coming out harsher than I intend. I clear my throat, trying to soften it. "I've got a lot of work to catch up on, actually. I should probably just, head upstairs." It's my only escape route.
My bedroom. The one place in this house that still feels remotely mine. A sanctuary he rarely enters. I need walls between us. I need a locked door. I push myself up from the armchair, the magazine sliding from my lap and onto the floor with a soft slap. I don't bend to pick it up. I have to move past him to get to the stairs, and the few feet of open air between us feels like a minefield. I hold my breath as I pass, acutely aware of his gaze on my back, a physical pressure that doesn't lift until I've rounded the corner into the hallway. I take the stairs 2 at a time, my hand gripping the polished banister for support. When I reach my room, I shut the door and lean against it, my eyes squeezed shut. The click of the latch is the most beautiful sound I've ever heard. I stand there for a full minute, just breathing. The scent of old books and laundry detergent in my own room, a small anchor in the storm. My eyes drift around the space, a museum of a life that no longer exists. A photograph on my dresser of me and him at a baseball game, me a gap-toothed 7-year-old on his shoulders. A row of academic awards on a shelf. Trophies from a person I no longer am, given to me by a man I never knew. Every memory is poisoned now, every shared laugh and moment of comfort retroactively curdled into a grotesque performance. My mind snags on something he said. The keynote speaker, the sudden family emergency. It was the reason he was home early, the convenient, blameless excuse. Curiosity, sharp and painful, cuts through the fog of fear. My laptop is on my desk. My fingers feel clumsy on the keyboard as I pull up a search engine. The conference was a major industry event in Chicago. Finding the program is easy. I find the keynote speaker's name, Dr. Alastair Finch, a renowned sociologist. A few more clicks and I'm on his professional social media page. His feed is public. And there, posted just 3 hours ago, is a smiling, sun-drenched photo of him and his wife. They're holding cocktails on a white sand beach, a turquoise ocean sparkling behind them. The caption reads, "Decided to play hooky from the conference for a few days. Don't tell my publicist. Greetings from Aruba." The air evacuates my lungs in a silent gasp. There was no family emergency. There was no sick child or dying parent. There was just a beach, a planned vacation. My father's story wasn't just a lie, it was a fabrication built on a whim, a casual dismissal of the truth because the truth didn't matter. He needed a reason for the trip to end, for his work in Chicago to be complete. The keynote speaker's absence wasn't the reason he came home, it was part of the plan. The entire trip, the conference, it was all just a stage, a carefully constructed alibi for another name in his ledger. He doesn't just find opportunities for death, he builds the architecture for it, brick by meticulous brick, and calls it a business trip. A cold sweat breaks out across my forehead, beating at my hairline. My father didn't just lie, he composed a symphony of deception. He didn't just seize an opportunity presented by a speaker's misfortune, he invented the misfortune entirely, knowing no one would likely check. It's the casual, arrogant brilliance of it that leaves me breathless. He created a pocket of unaccounted-for time in a city hundreds of miles away, a temporal black hole where he could do his work, and then sealed it with a plausible, even sympathetic excuse. He wasn't just covering his tracks, he was paving a road over them before he even made them. The smiling face of Dr. Alistair Finch in Aruba is a ghost at the feast, a cheerful, sunburnt specter revealing the rot at the core of my entire existence. My gaze darts from the laptop screen to my bedroom door, as if I expect my father to be standing there, his expression unreadable. The ledger. The thought hits me like a physical blow. It's still down there, in his study, sitting on the edge of his mahogany desk.
A ticking bomb. What if he goes in there? What if he notices it's been moved even a fraction of an inch? He's a man who orchestrates alibis across time zones. He would certainly notice a book out of place in his own sanctuary. The risk of leaving it is unbearable, but the risk of going back down there feels like suicide. My heart hammers against my ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. I have to get it. I can't leave the proof, the very dictionary of his evil, sitting in the open. It's the only thing that makes any of this real, the only thing tethering me to this horrifying new sanity. Slowly, I push away from my desk, my chair rolling back with a soft groan that sounds like a gunshot in the quiet. I press my ear to the door, listening. Faintly, from downstairs, I can hear the murmur of the television, the evening news probably. The sound is so normal, so achingly domestic, it feels like a deliberate mockery. I turn the knob with painstaking slowness, wincing at the tiny click of the latch. The hallway is empty, cast in the warm amber glow of the landing light. The air feels thick, heavy with unspoken things. I can smell steak. He's cooking. The scent of searing meat, something that has always meant comfort and home, now turns my stomach. It smells like a celebration, a job well done. I wonder whose name corresponds to the Chicago trip, whose life paid for this meal. I move on the balls of my feet, a stranger in my own home. The grand staircase curves down into the foyer, each step a potential betrayal. The old wood of this house has its own language of groans and sighs, a language I now pray stays silent. I keep my hand on the banister, not for support, but to feel for vibrations, for any sign of movement below. Halfway down, I can see into the living room through the wide archway. There he is. He's standing by the wet bar, a glass of dark liquor in his hand, watching the news report on the television. His back is to me. He looks completely relaxed, his shoulders loose, a portrait of a man at peace in his castle. The monster is unwinding after a long day of work. The study door is just past the living room, a dark rectangle in the dimmer light of the hall. I hold my breath, my entire body a single coiled nerve. I slip past the archway, my back pressed against the wall, my eyes fixed on his form. He doesn't turn. He lifts his glass to his lips, his attention captured by some politician's empty promises on the screen. I reach the study. The door is slightly ajar, just as he left it.
I push it open just enough to slide through, the hinges blessedly silent. The room smells of his cologne, of leather and paper and power. And there it is, the black ledger, lying innocently beside a stack of mail. It looks smaller than I remember, less like a book of the dead and more like a simple accounting tool, but I know what it contains. I cross the room in 2 silent strides, my hand reaching out. My fingers tremble as they touch the cool, smooth leather of the cover. It feels electric, profane. Just as I lift it, I hear a sound from the living room. A cough. A soft clearing of the throat. I freeze, the ledger clutched in my hand, my blood turning to ice. My mind screams, he knows! He let you come down here! It's a trap! I can hear his subtle shift of his weight, the soft clink of his glass as he sets it down on the bar. He's going to turn around. He's going to walk into the hall. He's going to find me here holding his entire secret world in my hands. There's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. Adrenaline, pure and sharp, lances through me. I don't think, I react. I pull my shirt up and shove the ledger against my stomach, the cold leather a shock against my skin. I pull my sweater down over it, the book creating a stiff, unnatural bulge against my torso. I back out of the study, pulling the door to the exact same sliver it was before. I move back along the wall, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I can hear his footsteps now, slow and unhurried, crossing the living room floor. He's heading for the kitchen, away from me. A wave of dizzying relief washes over me, so potent it almost brings me to my knees. I don't wait. I turn and fly up the stairs, my silent caution abandoned for raw speed, taking the steps 2 at a time. I burst back into my room, shutting the door and locking it, ramming the bolt home with a loud, definitive thud. I lean against the wood, panting, my lungs burning. My hands are shaking so badly I can barely function. I rip my sweater up and pull the ledger out, holding it in front of me. It's real. I have it. It feels impossibly heavy, like it's filled not with paper and ink, but with ghosts. The weight of it is immense, a physical burden. I am no longer just the boy who discovered his father's secret. I am the keeper of it. I am the curator of his crimes. The book is in my room. The monsters downstairs, and the flimsy lock on my door feels like the only thing separating one world from the next. My fingers dig into the stiff spine of the ledger, my knuckles white. I need to hide it. But where? My room, once a sanctuary, now feels like a glass box. Every corner seems exposed, every shadow a potential accomplice to my father's discovery. Under the mattress is the first place anyone would look. In a drawer, behind my clothes, amateur. I think of him. Of his meticulous planning, his layered alibis, I have to think like he does. My eyes land on the bookshelf, on a row of thick, outdated computer science textbooks from my first year of college. Heavy, dense, and utterly uninteresting. I pull one out. Advanced Data Structures. I haven't opened it in years. I lay it on my desk and carefully, using a box cutter from my art supplies, begin to carve out a rectangle from its center pages, a slow and painstaking surgery. Paper dust falls like snow as I hollow out a cavity, a perfect book-shaped tomb. I nestle the ledger inside, the black leather disappearing into the printed guts of the textbook. I slide it back onto the shelf between object-oriented design and discrete mathematics. It's invisible. It's safe. Just as I brush the last of the paper shavings into my trash can, a soft knock comes at the door. I flinch so hard I nearly cry out. His voice, muffled by the wood, is infuriatingly calm. "Everything all right, son? Dinner's ready." My own voice is a stranger in my throat, thin and reedy. "Yeah, Dad, be right down. Just finishing up some reading." The lie is clumsy, but it's all I have. "All right, don't be long. It's your favorite." The footsteps retreat down the hall. My favorite, ribeye. Cooked medium rare. The thought of it, the rich, bloody scent, makes bile rise in my throat. I stare at my reflection in the dark screen of my monitor. My face is pale, my eyes wide with a terror that feels ancient. I am going to have to walk down those stairs, sit across the table from him, and pretend that the world isn't broken. I am going to have to eat the meal he cooked to celebrate his latest kill. The dining room feels like a stage set. The low light, the gleaming silverware, the 2 wine glasses already poured. He's sitting at the head of the table, scrolling through something on his phone, a small, self-satisfied smile on his face. He looks up as I enter.
There he is. Sit, sit. I take my seat, the space between us a yawning chasm. He slides a plate in front of me. The steak has cooked perfectly, a dark, savory crust giving way to a warm, red center. It looks like a wound.
So, he begins, cutting into his own piece, how were classes today? The question is so mundane, so breathtakingly normal. It feels like a form of psychological warfare. I chew a piece of potato, the starchy texture turning to paste in my mouth. Fine, same old. I can't meet his eyes. I focus on the way his knife slices through the meat, clean and efficient. Just fine? Nothing interesting? There's a prodding quality to his tone, a subtle pressure. Is he testing me? Does he suspect something? My heart rate quickens. We went over network security protocols. It was dense. He nods, seemingly satisfied. Good. Important stuff. You have to know how to protect your data. Keep things locked down. You never know who might be trying to look. He winks, a folksy, fatherly gesture that feels like a razor blade dragging across my skin. Hours later, the house is finally quiet. The dishes are done, the television is off, and the monster is asleep. I wait until I hear the soft, rhythmic sound of his snoring from the master bedroom down the hall before I move. I retrieve the ledger from its hiding place, the textbook feeling heavier than before. I sit at my desk, the glow of my laptop a single point of light in the darkness, and I open the book. It's time to stop being a terrified kid and start being a witness. I turn to a random page. Marcus Thorne, Boston, MA, March 12th. I type the name and city into the search bar. The results are immediate. A local news article dated March 13th. Local businessman dead in apparent boating accident. There's a picture of Marcus Thorne, a man with a weathered face and a broad smile, his arm around a woman I assume is his wife. The article quotes the police who suspect he was knocked overboard by a rogue wave during a solo fishing trip. A freak accident, unforeseeable, tragic. My father was in Boston for a bereavement counseling seminar that entire week. My fingers fly across the keyboard. I look up another. Chloe Sterling, Austin, Texas, May 2nd. A headline from the Austin Chronicle. Promising chef dies in kitchen fire. The report cites a faulty gas line. Chloe Sterling was 29. Her picture shows a vibrant young woman with fiery red hair and a mischievous grin holding up a beautifully plated dish. Her restaurant had just received a glowing review. A life full of promise, extinguished by a random twist of fate. I check my father's calendar. A keynote speech at a grief symposium in Dallas. A last-minute trip he complained about for weeks. Austin is just a 3-hour drive away. I feel a sickening lurch, a dizzying sense of vertigo. These aren't just entries. They are lives. They are smiling faces and promising futures, all neatly summarized by a single line of ink and a paid invoice. I see my father's work now not as a series of clean professional transactions, but as a brutal, intimate act of erasure. He didn't just kill these people, he stole their stories, replacing them with plausible, palatable lies. As I stare at Chloe Sterling's smiling face, I realize I am the only person on earth who knows the truth of her ending. The weight of that knowledge is crushing, an anchor pulling me down into the dark. The pixelated smile of a dead woman burns itself onto the back of my eyelids. I push away from the dusk, a wave of nausea rolling through me. It's not just the killing, it's the artistry of the lie. The faulty gas line, the rogue wave, they are masterpieces of misdirection, stories so plausible they become the truth. My father isn't just an executioner, he's a novelist writing final chapters for people who never got to finish their own stories. And I, his son, am his first and only reader. For a moment, the weight is too much. I want to scream. I want to take the ledger downstairs, throw it at a sleeping form, and demand an answer. But the fear is a physical thing, a cold hand clamped over my mouth. He would have a plausible story for that too. My eyes fall back to the ledger, open on my desk. The names of the dead, the dates, the locations. But I've been staring at the wrong column. My gaze shifts to the right-hand side of the page, to the columns I'd ignored in my initial shock. Client. Payment received. balance due. My blood runs cold. These weren't random acts of violence. They were commissions. Each victim had a beneficiary. Each accident was a transaction. The grief counseling business wasn't just a cover. It was the second half of the service. He creates the widow, then he consoles her. The sheer, monstrous audacity of it steals the air from my lungs. He profits from the murder, then he profits from the grief he himself has manufactured. I turn back to the first entry I researched, Marcus Thorne, the fisherman from Boston. The ledger entry is clear. Victim, Marcus Thorne. Client, Eleanor Thorne. My fingers tremble as I type her name into the search bar. Her Facebook profile is public. The profile picture is of her and Marcus, the same sunny photo from the news article. Her feed is a shrine to his memory. Posts about their first date, pictures from a vacation in Italy 2 years ago, a heartbreakingly simple status update from a week ago that just says, "Another Sunday without you." The silence is deafening. The comments are a flood of sympathy. "Thinking of you, Ellie. He was a wonderful man. Stay strong." I scrolled through months of her performative mourning, and a strange, sick feeling twists in my gut. It's all so perfect. Too perfect. This is the face of a grieving widow. It's exactly what my father's legitimate clients look like. But I have to think like him. I have to look past the story he's created. I keep scrolling, back and back. Past the date of her husband's death, the tone of her posts begins to shift. A year ago, the happy couple photos become less frequent. They're replaced by vague, passive-aggressive quotes. You never know what people are going through behind closed doors. Sometimes the person you take a bullet for is the one behind the trigger. Then 8 months before Marcus's accident, the posts stop almost entirely, save for a few shared articles about local businesses struggling, about the rising cost of boat maintenance. Then I find it. A post from 10 months ago. A picture of her with a group of friends on a night out. She's laughing, leaning into a man who isn't her husband. I click on his profile. He's tagged. His relationship status, updated just 2 months ago, now says, "In a relationship with Eleanor Thorne." I feel like I'm going to be sick. The story is all there, written in the digital ether. The unhappy marriage, the financial strain, the new man. Marcus Thorne wasn't pulled overboard by a rogue wave. He was an obstacle, an inconvenience that was erased for a fee. And Eleanor, the grieving widow, the object of so much online sympathy, was the one who signed the check. My father didn't just give her a story to tell the police. He gave her a script to perform for the rest of her life. A floorboard creaks downstairs. I freeze, my hand flying to the mouse, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every nerve ending is on fire. The sound is faint, but in the crushing silence of the house, it's like a gunshot. I killed the monitor, plunging the room into darkness. I hold my breath, listening. Was it just the house settling, or was it him? I hear it again. A soft shuffle from the kitchen, directly below my room. The sound of the refrigerator door opening with a soft sigh of compressed air. He's awake. He's getting a glass of water, or a midnight snack. A perfectly normal, fatherly thing to do. But all I can picture is his hand, the same hand that wrote these names in this book, reaching for the milk. I slide off my chair and crawl into bed, pulling the covers up to my chin, my body rigid. I am an actor now, too. My role is the sleeping son. And I have to be convincing, because I know, with a certainty that chills me to the bone, that the monster downstairs is a master critic. I lie perfectly still, my breathing a shallow, controlled rhythm I haven't consciously managed since I was a child hiding from monsters under the covers. The irony is a bitter pill. The real monster is downstairs, and my childhood bed offers no protection. I can hear the soft clink of a glass being set on the granite countertop, then the rush of water from the tap. Each mundane sound is a thunderclap in the silence, a breadcrumb trail of his movements. I strain my ears, trying to build a map of his location in my mind. He's by the sink. Now he's walking towards the hall. My entire body tenses, a coiled spring of pure adrenaline. The sounds stop. The silence that follows is worse, a suffocating vacuum where my imagination runs wild. Is he standing at the foot of the stairs? Is he listening for me the same way I am listening for him? Then the creak. Not the random groans of an old house settling, but the specific, deliberate protest of the third stair from the bottom, the one he always skips out of habit. Except tonight, he didn't skip it. My heart seizes in my chest. He's coming up. I squeeze my eyes shut, forcing my body to go limp, to mimic the dead weight of sleep. The footfalls are soft on the upstairs runner, a predator's careful tread. They stop outside my door. I can feel his presence through the wood, a cold spot in the hallway. I pray he'll just move on, go to his own room, let this waking nightmare end. But I know he won't. The doorknob begins to turn, an agonizingly slow rotation that seems to take an eternity. The latch clicks with surgical quietness. The door opens, spilling a thin blade of hallway light across my floor. I don't dare move, don't dare let my eyelids flutter. I focus on the pattern of the darkness behind them, on the rhythm of my own fake sleep breathing. In, out, slow, even. He stands in the doorway for a long moment. I can smell him. It's the faint, familiar scent of his aftershave, a smell I've associated my entire life with safety, with a comforting hug before he left for a business trip. Now it smells like soil and secrets. It makes my stomach turn. He takes a step into the room, then another. He's standing over my bed. I can feel his shadow fall over me, an eclipse of the sliver of light from the hall. Is he watching me breathe? Can he hear the frantic, terrified drumming of my heart? This is the performance of my life. My role is the sun, sleeping soundly, blissfully unaware, and the audience is a man who can craft a flawless narrative around a faulty gas line. If my performance has a single flaw, I have no doubt he will write my final chapter. After what feels like a lifetime, he moves away. The floorboards whisper his retreat. The door closes with another soft click, and the room is plunged back into absolute darkness. I lie there rigid for a full 10 minutes, then 20, listening. I only let myself breathe again when I hear the muffled sound of his own bedroom door shutting down the hall. A shudder racks my entire body, a violent, silent sob of pure, unadulterated terror. The close call has changed everything. The abstract horror of the ledger has become a tangible threat, standing over my bed, smelling of aftershave. I can't just be the reader of his stories anymore. I can't just hide with this knowledge. The ledger isn't enough. No one would believe me. A grieving son lashing out, making wild accusations, he would have a story for that too, a plausible, palatable lie. I need more. I need proof that can't be explained away. I slip out of bed, my feet silent on the cold wood floor.
I creep back to his office, the adrenaline from before now cooled into a hard, determined resolve. I sit at his desk, the leather of the chair cold against my skin. I can't stop what he's already done. I can't bring back Marcus Thorne or Chloe Sterling. But maybe, just maybe, I can stop the next one. My fingers fly over the ledger's pages, flipping past the meticulously recorded deaths. Boston, Austin, Seattle, Miami, a graveyard of geography. I'm looking for a loose thread, a future entry, an upcoming trip. My eyes scan the dates, my heart pounding a new rhythm of desperate hope, page after page of completed transactions. Then I see it, A single entry, 3 pages on, dated 2 weeks from now. The ink is the same confident, steady script. The location is a small town in Colorado I've never heard of, Silver Creek. The name written next to victim is a man named Ben Carter, and in the client column, a name that makes the air freeze in my lungs. Sarah Carter. The payment is marked as pending. He hasn't done it yet. He hasn't been paid yet. There is still time. My plan wasn't a conscious thought. It was a physical imperative, a biological command to move. I copied the relevant ledger pages onto a thumb drive, a tiny black rectangle that held the weight of a dozen lives. I took the $3,000 in cash I had saved from summer jobs, stuffed it in an envelope, and buried it in the bottom of my backpack. The next morning at breakfast, the world felt tilted on its axis. The smell of coffee, the morning light slanting through the kitchen window, the sound of his fork scraping against his plate, it was all a stage play of normalcy, and I was an unwilling actor. He smiled at me over his newspaper. "Big plans for the weekend?" he asked, his voice the same warm, reassuring baritone it had always been. I looked into his eyes, the eyes I had inherited, and saw nothing but the placid surface of a deep, cold lake. Studying. I managed, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. Got a big exam coming up. He just nodded, a proud father, and turned back to the business section. I left that afternoon, telling him I was going to the library. Instead, I drove. For the first 100 miles, I checked my rearview mirror every 30 seconds, expecting to see his familiar sedan tailing me, his calm, disappointed face behind the wheel. But there was nothing. Just the endless ribbon of asphalt unreeling before me, pulling me further from the life I knew and deeper into his. The flat plains of the Midwest gave way to the rising promise of the Rockies, their jagged peaks like teeth against the sky. I drove for 22 hours straight, fueled by gas station coffee and a terror so profound it felt like a second heartbeat. Silver Creek wasn't on any major highway. It was a town you had to want to find, nestled in a valley that seemed untouched by the modern world. It was beautiful, sickeningly so. A postcard town with a cancer growing inside it. Finding Ben Carter was easier than I expected. He was a mechanic, the owner of the only garage in town. I saw him from across the street, laughing with a customer, wiping grease from his hands with a red rag. He looked happy. He looked alive. A few hours later, I saw him at a small diner with his wife, Sarah Carter. She was beautiful, with a bright, easy smile that never quite reached her eyes. She put her hand on his, and he covered it with his own. Watching them, I felt a wave of nausea. She was the client. She was paying to have this man, the man whose hand she was holding so tenderly, erased. The casual intimacy of the scene was more grotesque than anything in the ledger. This wasn't an abstract name on a page anymore. This was a man who liked his coffee black and laughed from his belly. And this was the woman who wanted him dead. I couldn't just walk up to him. I couldn't warn him. What would I say? That his wife hired my father, a grief counselor from Chicago, to kill him?
He'd call the sheriff, and they would call my father. He would have a story. He always had a story. I was the unhinged son, grieving my mother, spinning paranoid fantasies. It would all be so plausible. No, I needed the one thing my father couldn't script his way out of. I needed his own voice. I checked into a cheap motel on the edge of town and made the call. When he answered, I kept my voice level, a cold imitation of his own control. "I'm in Silver Creek," I said, no preamble. There was a pause on the other end, a silence so heavy I could feel the pressure in my ear. "I know about Ben Carter. I know about all of them. We need to talk." I told him to meet me at a scenic overlook a few miles out of town, a place where we would be alone. He arrived just as the sun began to set, painting the mountains in hues of blood and gold. He got out of his car, looking not like a monster, but like a concerned father. My phone was already recording in my jacket pocket. "What is this?" he asked, his voice softened with feigned worry. "Are you all right?" I didn't raise my voice. I just started listing the names. Marcus Thorne, drowned, Boston. Chloe Sterling, carbon monoxide, Austin. Ben Carter, pending, Silver Creek. His face didn't change, but something in his eyes flickered. The mask shifted. "You don't understand," he said, taking a step closer. "It's a service, a kindness. I give people a clean slate. I give them a story that lets them move on, free from the mess." He said it with such conviction, such chilling sincerity, that for a terrifying second he sounded like the grief counselor he pretended to be. He was a craftsman, and murder was just his medium. He took another step, and I saw his eyes dart to the slight bulge of the phone in my pocket. The realization dawned. The mask didn't just crack, it fell away completely. He lunged. It wasn't a fight, it was a clumsy, desperate struggle. And in that moment, as his hands closed around my arms, I realized I had already won. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. I sent a time-delayed email to the state police an hour ago with the audio file from this conversation. It was my insurance policy. The strength went out of his arms. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw him. Not the father, not the monster, but just a man whose story had finally run out. He was just a footnote in someone else's ledger now. Mine. I saved a man's life, but I destroyed my family. I exposed a killer, but I orphaned myself in the process. He's gone, and the world is safer for it, but the silence he left behind is deafening. When you discover the monster you've been hiding from your whole life is wearing your father's face, who do you have to become to stop him? Let us know in the comments.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. I post new stories every day.